Welcome to Job Sharing and Beyond, the Future of Work podcast that goes beyond the traditional 9 to 5. I am Karen Tischler, speaker, consultant, and host of the show, where we hear from global experts every other week to discover innovative solutions and tips on how to remain a relevant employer in the future. Hello, everyone. Before we get started with our podcast guest today, talking about fathers among other topics, I wanted to share a great piece of research written by Lee T. Gettler, an associate professor of Notre Dame University. He writes that new anthropological research suggests, and I'm quoting here, caring dad may have laid the evolutionary foundations for provider dad. To learn more details why this is the case, I will put the link to the article in our show notes. This is the type of interesting research findings that I share in the monthly EPC Emily's Past Consulting newsletter. I also provide updates of previous podcast guests and sneak previews of future guests. Typically, we have a Q&A interview included as well. The next issue will be coming out at the end of this month. To subscribe to it, to read the unabridged version, either go to our website at emilyspath.ca, which is emilyspath.ca, or check out the show notes for the link. And now I am delighted to introduce our guest today, Robert Frischbier. After receiving his diploma in business administration, he worked in the automotive industry for about 12 years. While being responsible for the quality management and inside sales, Robert learned how difficult it was for a young parent to balance work and life in a very traditional industry. In our conversation, Robert will share more about this experience and why he subsequently, together with his wife, co-founded 2PAARSchultern, which means 2 pairs of shoulders, and describes their own lifestyle best. Besides his work as a consultant and coach, Robert works as an auditor for the renowned Bertelsmann Foundation, certifying companies as family-friendly employers. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hi, Karin.
It's really nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm looking so much forward to.
Thank you very, very much. So now we have listeners from all over the world. A lot of them might be wondering, where are you calling in from? And are there any particular sites or food that you like that you can recommend to them?
I'm calling in from Berlin. Some may know this is the capital of Germany. So if you've been here, then you may have seen the Brandenburg Gate or the TV tower. If not, you should do so. And talking about the special food, I'm more the traditional Berlin-raised person. So it's the curry sausage, the currywurst, as we say here. And it's more or less a grilled sausage with a lot of tomato sauce and spices. So very tasty. And meanwhile, I know you are a vegetarian. Meanwhile, you also get it as in the veggie version.
That's pretty impressive. Yes, it's like, because when I was growing up in Germany, and Bavaria is, it's a little meat heavy there. So that's good to know. So I should try that out. Now, I have found it so interesting to learn about all your work. And I've gotten an introduction, and so have, I'm sure, some of the listeners here by reading about your interview in the Q&A guest interview that I have as part of the Emily's Past Consulting newsletter. Now, in case somebody has not had the chance to read the interview, could you tell our listeners a little bit why you started your company 2PAARSchultern?
When I became a father, my life and my mindset, according to career and job, changed totally. So my focus was now on the family life, more or less. And I learned that it's really hard to have a good work-life balance if you want to be a good father and if you want to work as well. And so did my wife. So she learned as well that it's hard to have a career further on with the child, and to be a good mom at the same time. So we developed our own and very good working system on this topic. So we decided to work on both in our jobs, but also to be there for our child, for our newborn son all the time. He was the most important new fact in our life. So we developed our own system, and it was working quite well. But it was a lot of pioneer work for both of us. So I was working in a very traditional industry at this time. It was the automobile industry in Germany. A lot of male leaders in this industry still. And if you go to your boss and say, okay, I want to stay at home with my child for 4 months, the law is on your side in Germany. So we have a very good parental allowance system here in Germany. It's very, very good for men as well as for women. But you feel or you see other borders. So you feel that you are not invited to all the meetings anymore. That there are talks behind your back and so on. So it is rather difficult, but it's okay. You decided to be a father, you do so. On some point of my life, I didn't want to do this pioneer work inside the company anymore. I wanted to change the whole system, more or less. So I decided to found 2PAARSchultern, our company, which explains our system very well, because everything that we do is based on two pair of shoulders. And so from this point on, I started to accompany or to work with companies and help them to be employer friendly, and to help as many people as possible to become good fathers and mothers beside their jobs.
And I'm so appreciative, because I think there is still such a lack of male role models all across the world, really. And so to me, to raise awareness, and for you to say, you've been in an industry that is maybe more male focused, and then to stand up and say, yes, I'm taking that amount of paternity leave. When you look at Japan, for example, they have exceptionally long paternity leave, but the actual percentage of male fathers who take it is, I'm trying to remember, I think it was like 8%, and they could, I think, take up to a year of paternity leave. But it is because from a societal and I'm sure like company perspective, still so rare that they just don't do it, because there isn't enough of a male role model, especially in the senior business areas. So I'm very appreciative of all your pioneer work. So now you are also hosting a podcast. And now could you share with our listeners a little bit about what is the mission of your podcast, and maybe share a few examples of the type of people you have interviewed in the past?
You perfectly brought it on the point right now, because it's the lack of role models, and not only fathers who do a career as well and have a child, but also for companies who are looking at new ideas, who are developing their own systems, their own supporting systems maybe. And the idea of the podcast is to put those role models into the spotlight. And not only the big players, we have like Zalando, Amazon, and so on in our podcast, but as well the small ones who have very, very good ideas. And they have the problem, they don't get the workforce they need here in Germany, because the good workers like gold right now here in Germany, you don't get them. So they have to do a lot. They cannot pay the money the big players pay. So the SME, they have to do a lot to get good people to the workforce. So they develop very good ideas how to support employees, and it needs to be seen, it needs to inspire others to do so as well. So that's the idea of our podcast.
And I really appreciate this, Robert. And that is also ultimately the idea I have on this podcast, that often it is, in different languages. So people just will not be able to know about examples, whether that is, somebody like you having an organization that really is focused on creating more of role models for fathers, and what you have described as the intersectionality between new work and work-life balance, which I think is really awesome. And so, I'm always, for any listener out there, I'm always looking for best case examples. So say if you live in South America or Africa or Asia, and there is somebody who might have a smaller organization, but in order to win the war for talent is really coming up with amazing ideas, it would be wonderful to hear about it. And so, Robert, I'm really appreciative that you are sharing that today, because I feel there is so much that can be done to really come up with innovative ideas to help people and make a work-life balance a more common method that helps not just this generation, but learning from the role models for the future to come.
Yeah, totally.
And now, besides your work for 2 pairs of shoulders, you're also an assessor for the Bertelsmann Foundation's quality stamp as a family-friendly employer. And I just find that so interesting. Now, could you share some highlights about your work, and what are you looking for when you're evaluating an organization for that stamp of approval as a family-friendly employer?
Well, basically, it is important to know it's not just about parent friendliness, but also I'm checking the working conditions for all of the employers. So it's also the people who needs to care about relatives, or who are volunteers or whatever. So the idea is to make an employer-friendly environment for all employers. What I'm checking is basically the same as I would do if I'm checking your quality management system. So I'm looking at your processes, at your communication, the leadership style, of course, but also what kind of working time models do you have? How do you support your employers in every way of life? So this is what I'm looking for, and it's many companies pretend to be friendly to their employers, but practice what you preach. So are you really doing? This is what I'm checking.
And so now, with the flexible work here in North America, Canada, and in the US, I've looked at a stamp of approval where it says best family-friendly employer. And I've noticed they do have people list, or companies list, the number of part-time employees and the number of full-time employees. But what I have not seen is how many of your part-time employees are actually beyond entry-level positions. So do you evaluate that? Like, are there career opportunities in a way that is beyond the typical full-time work? And what about job sharing and top sharing?
Absolutely. This is a very important point that I'm checking. How flexible is your work? How easy is it to become a leader or manage a person if you're on part-time job? And so this is absolutely what I'm checking in approval.
Can you share some examples of maybe companies that have like a particularly interesting way to do that for a listener could be of help?
If I come to a new company that I have to check, it's always interesting to see the lack of information about this topic. I'm talking to the manager, and of course, he or she knows that there are 10, 12, maybe 15, 20 work time models inside the company. And then I speak to the workforce, and I try to do the evaluation with every employer in the company. And then I see, okay, each one of them knows about 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 work time models, but the demand is much higher. So I'm trying to help the company to fill this lag and to give more visibility of the possibilities that are already existing in this company. And I must say, the companies are already very creative in developing new work time models and very supporting to their employees concerning this topic.
That is, a topic very dear to my heart, and that's why the name of the podcast is Job Sharing and Beyond, because here in North America, flexible work has been, seen in the past, I think, as something that just sort of maybe doesn't quite fit with the working life. And I really feel that COVID has brought up flexible work much more, because people are simply realizing it just doesn't work to have a full-time job as well as doing the homeschooling, as well as doing all the unpaid care work. And then the other thing, the fact that all of a sudden overnight people moved from being in the office all the time to remote work. I really hope and feel that that's sort of a starting point to more flexibility of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And so before COVID, would you then also have as one of your sort of flexibility criteria how many people are able to work from home, and whether or not that is sort of a possibility to do that as full-time working from home?
Yeah. Before COVID, it was a totally different situation. Many companies, maybe they were able to send a lot of their workforce into home office, but they were not able to lead these people anymore. So the middle and the top management, they were not prepared to lead people from distance. So, and this was one of the most complicated issues in the beginning of COVID. No one was prepared beside the technical preparation.
I sometimes felt that work was evaluated by the number of hours you were sitting at a desk rather than the productivity of the work you were actually doing.
Yeah, totally. It was like who sits as long as on his desk is the winner. I don't know.
I completely agree. And I always felt that if somebody, whether male or female, has obligations, whether that is caregiving or looking after elderly people or some other outside of work responsibilities, would typically lose that game because they would have to leave at a preset time.
Yeah.
So now, as we're talking about flexibility, I just thought it was fascinating that when Zurich UK, the insurance company, recently shared that they added 6 words to any job description, which is part-time, job share, and flexible work, they saw a significant increase in the number of applicants. And interestingly, it was both for male as well as female applicants. And it was also for more senior positions. Do you know of examples where maybe a company has changed that type of, job application description, and if that has then changed the number of applicants they receive?
Yep, absolutely. With all the companies I'm working with, on the first hand, if you change your processes and if you talk about that you're now offering flexible work and part-time job and so on, the first effect is a decrease of fluctuation. This is the first impact that you can really measure. On the second step, they start to get more applications on the desk. So now they are in a position to choose between the employees they want to hire and not anymore to take anyone who just steps by. It's definitely, and it's measurable.
We've talked a lot of people applying, but one set of the workforce that struggles often when applying is the people who are returning back to the paid workforce after a long period of absence. So in the US and in England and in India, there are so-called returnships, which is basically like an internship for returners. And to me, that was when I first started doing some research, like a fascinating method or solution to really help both parties, to allow these often women to, test out an organization, maybe learn some new technical skills they might be not aware of, and at the same time really demonstrate all the skills they have learned prior to leaving the paid workforce, as well as the additional skills they have learned during their unpaid care work. So is that something that you also, look for, or does that exist in Germany, or what kind of support is there?
Well, on this topic, all the German companies, they should look abroad, because this is a topic that is, not very good solved in Germany. On the one side, you have the persons, men or women, who are leaving for a certain time because they become fathers or mothers. This is okay, because the companies, meanwhile, they try not to lose these people. They let them go. They keep them updated, how the company is developing, all the news. And after a few months or maybe a year or 1.5 years, they return, and they return, quite good informed how the business is going. But then you have, like you said, the persons who are leaving for a long time, maybe also leaving the company, not being what they ever learned anymore, and then return after 3, 4, 5, 6 years maybe, want to join the workforce again, but there are so many news. So this is not very well solved in Germany. And today, just today, Tesla announced they are building here in the Berlin area a very, very big new gigafactory. And they announced that they want to hire also persons who are out of the jobs for a long time. And I'm really looking on this, if they help those people to become a part of the workforce again, and how will they do it?
I feel there is just such a potential, because you read so much about the war for talent. And to me, that is like an invisible part really of the workforce. And I feel one of the things that COVID really has done has highlighted more what work it really takes to do caregiving for children or looking after elderly relatives. And so in a way, I'm hoping it allows more hiring managers to really say, oh, yeah, somebody was out for 5, 10, 15 years, but from my own experience of the last year, I have seen the skills, transferable business skills, that really can be gained from patience, empathy, multitasking, time management. There are so many different competencies.
Absolutely. It's always tell the managers, think about what these people learn during the time. It's effectiveness. Parents are most effective. Also, they are the best project managers in the world you can get. So multitasking, you already mentioned. So there are so many skills that they learn in this time. So you need to have a look at it.
One of my previous guests, Alex Su Yang Kim Peng, he told me that because some organizations are looking to doing the 4-day work week, and therefore focusing more on productivity rather than number of hours worked, that they are in particular actually looking for working parents, because they know that they are very focused on their tasks, because they have to leave at a certain time, and so they are actually very much actively looking forward to hiring them, which I thought was a very positive sign.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to me, I always feel one ought to have some marketing campaign or advertising. I look at Sweden, how they had in the 70s the famous wrestler holding his little baby to sort of show the public you can be a man and you can, do care work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so from my perspective, I always feel maybe one should do something that says, okay, I don't know, describe a normal day in the video and then say, okay, transferable business skills learned, or, you have side by side a manager doing his or her, leading of employees versus somebody else doing, guiding their child to move along in the school system, or take risks, or do independent projects. So
Yeah, but also the small steps. Why not just refuse an invitation for a meeting because you need to take care of your child?
you're absolutely right. And there I see a huge opportunity for senior leaders, because often, if the big boss says, nope, I am not able to do this. Like, I had attended a recent online event, from academia, and after the main part of the event, there was sort of some online mingling opportunities, and the host of the event said, I'm very sorry that the actual key speaker cannot attend because he has a very important business that he has to do. And then he said he has to cook dinner for his family.
Great.
And I just felt that was so important. And we go right back to, the role models. Anybody listening to this might hopefully the next time say, I can state that too.
Yeah.
And
yeah, good example.
Yeah. And you had mentioned before Zalando. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but especially on the English speaking side of the world, there has been such a discussion about Ritter saying that he is that not only stepping down, but that also he is prioritizing his wife's professional career, as well as doing care work, because she's pregnant with their second child. And I sort of feel it is so important to highlight this, and for him to actually make that statement. He would not have had to do that necessarily.
Absolutely. And I want many more of those examples. I also want politicians, please, male politicians, do so.
Yes.
And also, please, the first soccer player in German profi soccer league, please step back because your girlfriend or your wife wants to do a career as well.
You're right. That is a really, really interesting idea, because you need a lot of high profile examples. And I've been in a lot of discussions where people feel that, well, why do we have to highlight that particular person when in probably daily female professionals step down because of the career for their respective partner? And while I agree that that is the case, in order to change society's attitude, if men don't know that there are other role models, they just really don't think about it. So I love the idea about the professional soccer player in Germany.
Yeah, that would be a sign.
We've been talking about your role as the evaluator, and what happens when somebody applies to become a more, to get the family friendly stamp of approval, but maybe they simply are not quite ready, or there are some challenges. What do you do then?
Well, the idea is not just to check the situation, but also to help the company to pass the whole evaluation. So if we come on a certain point where we see, okay, this is not enough what you are doing, you are not supporting your employers, or they just don't, they can't balance work and life. So then together we develop a strategy. How can they become the family-friendly employer they want to be? This is also always a working process that we are passing together. And in the end, maybe not in the first step, but maybe a few weeks or a few months later, they will pass.
I honestly think it is a very brave thing to do, because having somebody external come in, there likely will be evaluations and revelations that what maybe senior management perceives to be a perfectly working organization or process will maybe not be always as perfect as they might think.
That's right. But really problematic will it be if the top management doesn't commit to the whole idea. If it's just, please HR, get us those stamp, then it will not be possible, because it needs to be, celebrated from top to the bottom.
So if, say, somebody gets the stamp of approval, is that then on a permanent basis, or is that for a certain period of time and then they have to have it reevaluated, or how does that work?
Yeah, the re-evaluation will be after 3 years.
So we've alluded a little bit to earlier about COVID. Are there any best practice examples of services, activities that you have seen from employers, family-friendly employers during the pandemic that you could say, that was really a surprise, that was amazing how they took care of their employees?
Yeah, especially in the first lockdown, it was very important that you show as a company, as a manager, that you trust your people. It was all about trust somehow. So you need to show, or you needed to show, that you understand their current situation. They maybe have to homeschool their kids, or to be very, very careful about their health. And there were also a lot of fears around. And so you need to show that you understand their current situation. And it was when I worked with the managers at this time, and they asked me, what shall they do right now? So in the beginning, we always learned together, how do you ask how your employers feel right now, and really take care about the answer in the end. So not just, how are you? And now let's talk about the last meeting. No, but really, how are you? How can I help you? What do you need from me? And really, this was what we did in the first lockdown. There were a lot of very good examples of companies who did very well. They sent small gifts like chocolate, or just to show we think about you, take care of yourself, take a break if you need, and so on. And we trust that you are working as well as you did without COVID, if possible. And then it was also very important to make sure that the working conditions are well, because we had problems with hardware. It was just not enough hardware for everybody who needed. You maybe had one tablet or one laptop at home, but your child needed one for homeschooling, and maybe both partners needed the hardware as well. So how could the company support their workforce on these topics? Maybe give them one tablet more. Also, they need only one, or something. Yeah, there were a lot of small good examples.
That is really, really interesting. And I think long term, if a employee is feeling really taken care of, and as you said, little things like a chocolate, or just feeling that people really value them and take care of them as a person, that will probably lead to more employee retention in the long run, and also sort of distinguish an organization that really believes in its mission and sees their employees not just as a cost point rather than their biggest asset, really.
Yeah, it is the biggest asset. The people, the workforce, that is what you need to take care of. The machines, okay, yeah, but the people, that's the point.
Now, talking about employees as assets. So now, on the one hand, we have seen more female professionals having to reduce their work or leave paid work altogether because of the unequal distribution of homeschooling duties, care work duties during COVID, and some real fear that we are going back to the 50s as far as role models is concerned. But on the other hand, we have also recently seen an increase in laws and initiatives to get to more diversity, such as the Stay on Board initiative in Germany for board members to take a temporary leave of absence for illness or for caregiving duties, which currently is not possible. And the female quota for C-suites in German corporations, as well as NASDAQ introducing for companies that want to trade on NASDAQ to have at least one female representative on their corporate board, as well as one additional member of a marginalized group on the board as well. And so now, as we are looking at all of this, where do you see this all going? So, how do you feel might all of this change also, the evaluation or assessment for family-friendly employers?
Well, at least I hope that all what we just talked about will be totally normal in a few years. So this is my hope, my idea of my whole working, that all the companies will be diverse, as well as family friendly, as well as, of course, effective and have a successful business life.
Yeah, it's like, when you look at the different reports that have come out that show the more diverse an organization is, it not only helps the actual people, but from a financial perspective, it makes sense because it creates more innovative solutions, and the margins of these organizations tend to therefore increase as well. Yeah, I would love to talk with you forever, but we're coming towards an end. So is there like any thought or quote or statistics or a question related to your work that you would like to leave our listeners with, so something they can sort of, ponder about?
I would like to leave a thought or maybe a question to every listener, and just in particular, what can you do to make others' life or others' work-life balance better? So, because there's always something you can do, and it's at least the time you're setting a meeting. So, do you set up a meeting after 3 p.m. or earlier? So, there's always something you can do to make others' work-life balance better. So, what is it that you can do? Think about.
How can our listeners communicate or contact you?
I think the easiest way is via LinkedIn. Just type in my name. I think I'm the only Robert Frischbier there, so you will find me.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Robert, for being a guest on the show. I so appreciated having you.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you gained valuable insights and new ideas. To keep listening to future episodes, please head over to iTunes or your favorite player and subscribe and give it a rating. We would very much appreciate a review and for you to share it on social media, so more people can start innovating in how they offer employment. Until the next time, goodbye!